1950, could a plane this size, with 44 people on board, vanish in the Alaska Triangle?
For more than 25 years, Daniel Holman worked above the ice and mountains of Alaska with steady hands and a calm mind. He believed every problem in the sky had a logical answer. Weather can be tracked, terrain can be mapped, risk can be managed. Then something happened inside the Alaska Triangle that he could not explain. Now, before time runs out, he breaks silence about the Alaska Triangle.
Lies a mysterious stretch of wilderness where more than 16,000 people have gone missing since 1988.
What could shake the confidence of a seasoned bush pilot, and what truth has been waiting in the silence of the North? Join us as we uncover what moves across the ice. Daniel Holman speaks after years of silence. Daniel Holman from Alaska has more than 25 years of experience as a bush pilot. He has flown through mountain passes covered in ice. He has landed on frozen rivers, short gravel strips, and moving glacier surfaces. In Alaska, bush flying is not an adventure hobby. It is serious work that supports research teams, villages, wildlife crews, and remote camps. Daniel built his career on discipline, patience, and careful judgment. For most of his life, he avoided attention. Pilots in remote aviation communities protect their reputation carefully. Trust is everything. A single questionable report can affect contracts, insurance confidence, and professional respect. That is one reason Daniel stayed silent for years about what he witnessed inside a region many now call the Alaska Triangle. He did not come forward for publicity. He did not speak for money. He chose to speak because he feels time is limited. He believes that before he dies, his experience should be placed on official record. Daniel began flying in early adulthood and trained specifically for short takeoff and landing aircraft. These planes are built for rough terrain and extreme cold. He has flown aircraft commonly used in Alaskan bush operations, including high-wing single-engine utility planes designed for snow skis and tundra tires. These aircraft allow access to areas without roads or airports. His missions included supply drops, glacier research transport, wildlife survey support, and geological mapping teams. Many of these assignments required glacier landings. Glacier strips are unpredictable. Snow hides cracks in the ice. Wind patterns shift suddenly near mountain walls. Whiteout conditions can erase depth perception within seconds. A pilot must rely on instruments and experience. Winter increases every risk. Temperatures fall far below freezing. Engines must be preheated. Fuel lines can freeze. Batteries lose power. Mountains create severe downdrafts. Storm systems form quickly and trap aircraft in narrow valleys. Communication can drop without warning. Daniel handled these dangers for decades without major incident. His record remained clean. He followed reporting procedures carefully. The incident he now describes happened during a winter resupply flight to a remote Glacier research camp. The scientists there studied long-term ice movement and melt patterns. He had flown to that strip before. The landing area was narrow but manageable, under good visibility. When he arrived, members of the research team mentioned unusual movement recorded near a crevasse field. Thermal equipment had detected an upright heat signature during the night. The data upload had failed. Daniel listened, but did not react strongly. In remote isolation, strange readings can have normal explanations. After unloading supplies, he agreed to make a low pass over the glacier face before departure. During that pass, he saw what he first believed was exposed rock against the ice, but the shape shifted. It stood upright. The movement was controlled, not sliding or falling. He felt confusion before fear. His training pushed him to scan again, check light angles, and check shadows. The figure remained visible for several seconds. It appeared taller than local wildlife normally observed in that region. It did not react to the aircraft noise. He did not circle repeatedly. He completed his departure and returned to base. He filed an official report through proper aviation contacts. The response was procedural and brief. No extended investigation followed. If this were a single strange sighting, it might be dismissed. But the region where this occurred carries a long record of disappearances that cannot always be clearly explained. The Alaska Triangle, a region of vanishings. The Alaska Triangle is a term used to describe a large region between Anchorage, Juneau, and Utqiagvik. Within these boundaries lies vast wilderness. There are mountain ranges, massive glacier systems, dense forest, and long stretches of tundra. Population density is extremely low outside urban centers. Many areas remain accessible only by aircraft. The geography alone creates danger. The Alaska Range contains some of the highest peaks in North America. Weather systems build quickly along these mountains. Moisture from coastal regions collides with cold Arctic air. Storms form with little warning. Heavy snowfall reduces visibility. Strong winds create turbulence severe enough to challenge even experienced pilots. Glaciers move slowly but constantly. Crevasses can open beneath thin snow layers. Rivers shift paths under ice. Magnetic variation in northern latitudes affects compass readings. Pilots must adjust navigation instruments accordingly. Alaska has reported more than 20,000 missing persons cases over many decades. While many are eventually resolved, the rate per capita is higher than most other states in the United States. Harsh terrain and climate make search and rescue operations difficult. In winter, daylight hours shorten dramatically. In remote zones, locating wreckage or individuals can take weeks. Aviation incidents represent a significant portion of disappearances. Small aircraft are essential for transportation across the state. When planes go down in isolated terrain, wreckage can be buried by snow or hidden among mountains. Recovery is not always immediate. One of the most well-known aviation cases occurred in 1950. A Douglas C-54 military transport aircraft disappeared while flying over Alaska. There were 44 individuals on board. A large search operation followed. Despite extensive efforts, confirmed wreckage was never officially recovered. The event remains one of Alaska's enduring aviation mysteries. Navigation challenges also play a role in the region's reputation. Magnetic irregularities at high latitudes can interfere with compass accuracy. Solar activity in polar regions sometimes disrupts radio signals. Communication loss in mountainous terrain is common. Radar coverage in remote areas can be limited, especially in earlier decades. In addition to aviation cases, the region has a high number of unexplained reports involving strange aerial phenomena. Thousands of sightings have been recorded over time in Alaska. One widely discussed case occurred in the mid-1980s involving a Japanese cargo aircraft that reported unusual lights while flying near Alaska. Radar confirmations were reported publicly, although official conclusions remained limited. Most experts attribute disappearances in the Alaska Triangle to natural causes: severe weather, human error, equipment failure, wildlife encounters, and environmental exposure explain many tragedies. Alaska's landscape does not forgive mistakes easily, yet the number of incidents, combined with the vastness of the terrain, continues to raise questions. Search operations often cover enormous distances. Snowfall can bury evidence. Glaciers can shift wreckage miles from impact zones over time. The Alaska Triangle is not a supernatural label created without reason. It is a geographic reality shaped by extreme conditions. Mountains, ice, magnetic variation, and isolation combine to form one of the most challenging environments on Earth. When Daniel Holman describes what he saw over that glacier, his account becomes part of a much larger pattern. Aircraft are not the only unexplained presence in this region. On the ground and on the ice, reports continue to surface that suggest something else may be moving through the Alaska wilderness. The Glacier Science Camp Incident. The mission began as a routine winter supply assignment. A seasonal glacier research team had established a temporary camp on a stable ice platform within the Alaska Range. The team's purpose was scientific and practical. They were studying long-term ice movement and seasonal melt patterns. Their work focused on measuring glacier thickness, tracking surface shift, and recording temperature change inside deep crevasse fields. These research projects are common in Alaska. Scientists monitor glaciers because they directly affect river systems, sea levels, and regional climate patterns. Data is usually collected through ground sensors, thermal cameras, and satellite transmission units. Camps remain active for several weeks or months, depending on funding and weather. Daniel Holman was assigned to deliver fuel containers, food supplies, battery packs, and replacement equipment. It was not his first trip to this location. The landing strip was a compacted snow surface maintained by the research team. Marker flags were placed along both sides to define the runway edges. The Glacier was wide but uneven beyond the prepared landing path. The flight took place during winter daylight hours. In that season, daylight is limited but still usable during mid-afternoon. The sky was mostly clear with high, thin cloud layers. Visibility extended several miles. Wind conditions were light with minor surface drift across the ice. The temperature remained well below freezing. After landing, Daniel shut down the aircraft and assisted with unloading. During this time, members of the science team described unusual observations from the previous night. Their thermal imaging camera, positioned near a crevasse field roughly 1 mile from camp, had recorded a heat signature that appeared upright. The shape did not match common wildlife patterns normally seen in the region. Alaska wildlife in glacier regions includes animals such as wolves or bears, but winter movement at higher elevations is limited. Thermal signatures usually show low horizontal shapes when animals move across snow. According to the team, this heat signature stood vertically and remained visible longer than expected. The transmission of the thermal data was interrupted during upload to their satellite system. Equipment failure in cold conditions is not rare. Batteries drain quickly. Signal interference occurs at high latitude due to solar activity. The scientists initially believed the anomaly could be a malfunction or distortion caused by ice reflection. Daniel listened carefully but remained neutral. Remote environments can distort depth and heat readings. He completed the unloading process and prepared for departure. Before takeoff, he agreed to perform a low-altitude pass along the glacier wall near the crevasse field. The purpose was visual confirmation of surface stability and general observation. He climbed to a modest altitude after departure, then descended gradually to approximately 500 feet above ground level for the pass. Lighting conditions were stable but flat. Snow glare can reduce contrast during winter, especially when sunlight reflects off ice at a low angle. He adjusted his viewing angle to minimize glare through the cockpit window. At a distance, estimated between 1/2 mile and 3/4 mile from the aircraft, he observed a dark vertical shape near the base of an ice wall. At first, he believed it might be exposed rock or debris embedded in the glacier. However, within several seconds, the shape shifted position. The movement was controlled and upright. It did not resemble sliding snow or falling ice. It appeared to step laterally across the surface. Based on terrain markers and known reference points, Daniel estimated the figure's height relative to nearby ice ridges. The comparison suggested a height greater than that of an average adult human. He reduced speed slightly to maintain stable observation, but did not circle. The aircraft engine produced clear, audible noise that would normally disturb wildlife. The figure showed no visible reaction to the aircraft's presence. Daniel considered possible explanations. Visual distortion can occur over snow due to light refraction. Heat shimmer is rare in extreme cold, but surface contrast can create illusion. Shadows cast by uneven ice sometimes appear vertical when viewed from certain angles. He reviewed each possibility quickly. Visibility remained several miles. There was no blowing snow obscuring the view. No other objects were present nearby that could easily explain the motion. After several seconds of observation, he chose not to make a second low pass. Repeated circling at low altitude over glacier terrain carries risk. Downdrafts near ice walls can destabilize small aircraft. He resumed climbing and continued departure along his planned route. Upon returning to base, he documented the sighting through official reporting channels. He described altitude, lighting conditions, approximate distance, and movement pattern. The report was filed without speculation. The event might have remained only a documented anomaly within a pilot's logbook. However, what followed changed its significance. 2 days later, communication from the Glacier camp stopped entirely. Emergency return and abandoned site. When the emergency message was relayed, weather conditions had shifted. A light storm system had moved through the region overnight. Visibility was reduced, but still within safe operational limits for experienced bush pilots. Surface winds had drifted snow across the Glacier Strip. Daniel prepared the aircraft with cold weather protocols. Fuel lines were checked carefully. The engine preheat was completed to avoid mechanical stress. He departed under controlled but cautious conditions. During approach to the Glacier camp, he noticed that runway marker flags were partially buried by fresh snow. The landing strip remained visible but less defined. Surface texture appeared disturbed beyond normal wind drift patterns. Small ridges of snow had formed in irregular shapes near the camp perimeter. After landing, he taxied slowly to the usual shutdown point. The generator that normally powered the camp's communication equipment was silent. No radio signal responded to his approach call. He exited the aircraft and walked toward the tent structures. The camp showed signs of disorder. One tent had torn fabric along its side. Supply crates were overturned. Equipment cases lay open on the snow. There were no personnel present. He observed dark staining on the snow near one of the tents. The color contrasted clearly against the white surface. Based on visual assessment, it resembled blood. He did not conduct forensic testing, but the appearance was consistent with biological staining rather than spilled fuel. In addition, he noticed impressions in the snow leading away from the camp. The spacing between these impressions appeared wider than average human stride length. The depth suggested significant weight. The pattern did not resemble snowmobile tracks or known wildlife prints common to that elevation. The air carried a metallic odor. In cold environments, scent can travel differently due to density and lack of moisture. The smell was sharp and noticeable. He paused several times to listen. The glacier environment is usually quiet, except for distant cracking sounds as ice shifts. During this time, he reported hearing a low, rhythmic sound that resembled breathing. The source was not visually identified. Daniel did not conduct an extended search alone. Standard safety procedure discourages solo exploration in unstable glacier terrain. He returned to the aircraft and transmitted a situation report once the signal stabilized at higher altitude. Search and rescue teams were later deployed. Aerial sweeps and ground teams surveyed the area. No bodies were recovered during the official search window. Public explanation cited equipment malfunction and possible self-evacuation by the research team prior to communication failure. However, Daniel confirmed that he did not transport the team out. No flight record from his aircraft indicated evacuation. Public records did not clearly document alternative extraction. Environmental factors can erase evidence quickly in glacier regions. Snowfall can cover tracks within hours. Wind can reshape surface impressions. Crevasses can conceal objects permanently as ice shifts over time. The abandoned camp remains one of several unexplained cases within that northern wilderness zone. Official files categorize it as unresolved under environmental hazard circumstances. This was not the only report from the northern wilderness describing something upright, deliberate, and unresponsive to gunfire or aircraft. Parallel encounter. Industrial logistics team in remote corridor. Several years after the Glacier Science Camp incident, another report surfaced from a different region inside the same broad northern corridor. This case did not involve researchers. It involved an industrial logistics audit team assigned to inspect a decommissioned exploration route. The corridor had once supported mineral and energy survey operations. Temporary roads had been cut through forest and tundra. Equipment staging areas were established for seasonal use. When exploration funding ended, much of the infrastructure was removed. What remained were scattered foundations, graded paths, and an isolated service corridor rarely used except for periodic inspection. A two-man logistics team was assigned to audit remaining materials and confirm that no environmental hazards were left behind. Their mission was administrative and technical. They traveled in a heavy-duty truck equipped for winter terrain. They also used a heated mobile trailer for overnight shelter. Temperatures in that region regularly fall far below freezing during winter months. The team reached the corridor without incident. The first day involved routine inspection of storage containers and equipment pads. Snow depth was moderate. The wind was light. Wildlife tracks were visible in several areas, including small mammals and possibly foxes. Nothing appeared unusual at first. During the second evening, one member of the team noticed large impressions in the snow near the rear of the trailer. These impressions were deeper than surrounding animal tracks. The spacing between them was longer than the average human stride. The pattern suggested upright movement rather than four-legged travel. They initially considered the possibility of a large bear. However, bears in winter typically enter periods of reduced activity. The impressions did not show front and rear paw alignment consistent with known bear movement patterns. Instead, each depression appeared singular and spaced in a straight line. Over the next hour, the impressions increased around the trailer. The pattern suggested pacing. Tracks circled the mobile unit several times. Snow near the trailer hitch was compacted more heavily than surrounding areas. The team remained inside and monitored through narrow windows. Exterior floodlights were activated. After several minutes, one member observed movement beyond the light range. A tall, upright shape moved briefly between tree lines at the edge of visibility. Both men later described the figure as maintaining an upright posture. They noted a body outline that appeared broad at the shoulders and narrow at the waist. The surface appeared dark and possibly covered in hair. Due to low light and distance, precise detail was limited. They also reported forward-facing eye placement visible when the figure turned toward the light source. Eye shine is common in many animals at night, but the height of the reflection appeared higher than expected for regional wildlife. One of the men discharged a firearm into the air as a warning measure. The sound echoed across the corridor. According to their report, the figure did not retreat immediately. It paused, then continued moving laterally before disappearing behind tree cover. The leg structure they described appeared straight rather than angled like typical quadruped hind legs. Movement was smooth and balanced. Concerned about safety, the team prepared to depart at first light. During early morning hours, they heard an impact against the side of the truck. Upon inspection after sunrise, they observed visible denting along one panel. Snow on the side showed a large smear pattern resembling a broad hand shape pressed against the metal surface. They began driving out of the corridor shortly after sunrise. While accelerating along the cleared route, one member observed through the side mirror a dark, upright figure moving parallel to the truck for a brief period. The figure appeared to match vehicle speed for several seconds before falling behind as the truck increased pace. The men returned to base and filed an internal report. The account included photographs of the impressions and vehicle damage. Management categorized the event as probable wildlife misidentification. The truck was repaired quietly through routine maintenance channels. No formal wildlife investigation followed. The corridor remains rarely used. This encounter shares structural similarities with Daniel Holman's observation. Both describe upright movement. Both involve lack of fear response to loud mechanical noise. Both include stride spacing, inconsistent with average human gait in deep snow. However, neither report asserts identity. Each simply records observations. If two independent witnesses describe similar upright figures in separate regions, the question becomes unavoidable. What does science say about this possibility? Scientific analysis and competing explanations. When unusual reports surface from remote regions, science begins by examining known wildlife. Alaska supports large mammals, capable of impressive size. Brown bears can stand upright temporarily. A bear with mange can lose fur and appear thinner or differently shaped. Under certain light conditions, a standing bear, viewed from a distance, might resemble a tall human form. Wolves can also behave unpredictably. However, wolves move primarily on four legs. Their upright stance is brief and uncommon. Track patterns from wolves differ clearly from bipedal stride impressions. Optical distortion plays a major role in Arctic environments. Snow glare can flatten visual depth. Light refracts differently over ice. Shadows stretch during low winter sun angles. Objects appear taller or closer than they truly are. These factors can influence perception, especially from aircraft. Pareidolia is another known psychological effect. It refers to the human tendency to perceive meaningful shapes in random patterns. In isolated environments, the brain can amplify ambiguous shapes into recognizable forms. Fatigue and stress may increase this tendency. Environmental factors may also contribute. Infrasound, which is low-frequency sound below normal hearing range, can create feelings of unease or presence. Strong wind moving across mountain ridges can generate infrasound naturally. Some researchers suggest that prolonged exposure to infrasound may influence perception. Magnetic field fluctuations occur more frequently in high-latitude regions. Solar storms interact with Earth's magnetosphere near the poles. These interactions can disrupt compass readings and radio signals. While there is no confirmed evidence linking magnetic fluctuation to visual hallucination, unusual electromagnetic environments are studied for potential cognitive impact. In 2015, reports of unexplained surface movement near certain Alaskan areas generated local discussion. Seismic activity in Alaska is common due to tectonic boundaries. Earth movement can create cracks, vibrations, and shifting snowfields. These events sometimes alter the landscape unexpectedly. Thermal illusions can occur near glacier edges. Temperature differences between ice and exposed rock create fluctuating heat patterns. Infrared equipment may detect anomalies caused by reflective surfaces rather than living organisms. Beyond conventional wildlife and environmental explanations, some researchers explore cryptozoological hypotheses. One idea proposes the existence of a relict hominid species surviving in remote wilderness. This theory suggests a small population of large primates remaining undocumented. There is no verified biological evidence supporting this claim. Another hypothesis suggests an undocumented apex predator adapted to extreme cold. Again, no confirmed specimens or genetic samples have been produced to validate this theory. Some discussions extend further, suggesting survival of prehistoric megafauna. Paleontological evidence shows that large mammals once inhabited northern regions. However, there is no confirmed modern evidence that such species continue to exist today. Military installation rumors also circulate, particularly involving areas near Mount Hayes. Speculation claims hidden facilities or classified operations. Public records confirm that Alaska has hosted military sites historically due to strategic location. However, no confirmed public evidence links military activity to upright creature reports in these wilderness cases. Scientific investigation demands measurable evidence. Footprint casts, biological samples, clear photographic documentation, and verified radar data would be required to confirm any unknown species claim. So far, such evidence has not been publicly validated. Most experts conclude that extreme environments combined with wildlife behavior and human perception likely explains the majority of reports. However, the pattern of upright descriptions remains consistent enough to invite continued curiosity. Neutral analysis neither confirms nor dismisses entirely. It acknowledges limitations in current data while emphasizing known environmental complexity. But beyond science and speculation, another pattern emerges. What happens after witnesses report these events? Institutional response and psychological impact. When unusual reports emerge from remote regions, the first response from institutions is usually procedural. The event is logged. A short review may be conducted. Basic explanations are considered. In most cases, the matter is then categorized under environmental hazard, wildlife activity, or equipment malfunction. This pattern appears consistent across several northern incidents. Reports are acknowledged, but they are often minimized. Unless there is clear physical evidence such as recovered remains or confirmed mechanical failure, extended investigation rarely follows. Resources in Alaska are limited and prioritized for immediate safety concerns. Search and rescue operations focus on survival and recovery. Once active danger has passed, deeper inquiry may not continue. For professionals working in aviation, research, or logistics, speaking publicly about unexplained observations carries risk. Careers in these fields depend on reliability and clear judgment. A pilot must be trusted to assess weather, terrain, and equipment accurately. A logistics coordinator must demonstrate rational decision-making. When a witness reports something outside normal explanation, colleagues may quietly question that judgment. Daniel Holman understood this reality. After filing his report about the Glacier sighting, he noticed that follow-up questions were brief. There was no formal request for extended debriefing. The event remained recorded, but inactive. He returned to routine assignments, Yet the memory did not settle easily. Psychological effects following high stress events are well documented in scientific literature. Even when no direct physical threat occurs, uncertainty can affect the nervous system. Sleep disturbance is common. Daniel reports that winter flights over glacier terrain became more mentally demanding after the incident. He remained alert at a heightened level. Small shadows or surface movement captured his attention more quickly than before. Hypervigilance is a natural human response to perceived unknown threat. It does not require confirmed danger. The brain stores sensory details strongly when an event feels unresolved. In Daniel's case, certain memories remained vivid. He recalls the posture of the figure. He recalls the stillness after aircraft noise. He recalls the silence of the abandoned camp. Other witnesses from the industrial corridor described similar lingering effects. They reported replaying the pacing tracks in their minds. One described recalling the metallic odor long after returning home. Odor memory is known to connect strongly with emotional centers of the brain. Even brief exposure can remain powerful. Avoidance behavior also developed. Daniel chose not to accept assignments into that same glacier region again. This decision was not based on official restriction. It was personal caution. Avoidance is common after unusual or stressful events. It allows individuals to regain a sense of control. From an institutional standpoint, data gaps complicate understanding. Some disappearance files in Alaska remain unresolved for decades. Harsh terrain destroys evidence quickly. Snowfall can bury tracks within hours. Glaciers shift slowly but steadily, carrying debris into crevasses or beneath ice layers. Rivers change course. Wildlife scatters remains. Search records are not always fully accessible to the public. Privacy laws protect certain details. Funding limitations restrict long-term investigation. As a result, some cases remain listed as open without detailed updates. This lack of transparency can create tension. Families of missing individuals seek closure. Professionals who filed unusual reports seek acknowledgement that their statements were reviewed seriously. When responses remain brief, uncertainty continues. At the same time, experts emphasize that Alaska's environment alone explains many tragedies. Severe weather changes rapidly. Aircraft icing occurs quickly in cold, moist air. Human error increases when visibility drops. Wildlife encounters can become fatal. Exposure to cold can end life within hours without shelter. It is important to recognize this reality. The majority of incidents in remote Alaska have natural explanations supported by evidence. Search teams often risk their own safety to recover lost hikers, hunters, and pilots. However, patterns of upright sightings described independently across separate regions create ongoing curiosity. In a land where nature alone is capable of erasing evidence, certainty is rare. But when experienced professionals risk their credibility to speak, the question remains, what exactly moves across the ice in the Alaska Triangle? If you enjoyed this video, like and subscribe, and also click the next video shown on your screen.